One of the most common real estate related questions online right now is why is it so hard to buy a house? And on the surface, the obvious answer might look like, well, of course, home prices are just too high. That's why it's so hard. And while that is the main factor, I want to dive into some of the other reasons why it's so hard, but also why home prices are so high, because it doesn't have to be that way, guys. There are a lot of insidious things that are happening in the housing market that make homes much more unaffordable than they really need to be. And it's like a confluence of a bunch of different factors that add up to why it's so hard to buy a home today. And for a lot of Americans these days, it's just downright impossible. The numbers literally don't work, and there's nothing you can do to make it work. And it's very frustrating because the media makes it just seem like, well, all we need is for interest rates to come down and everything will be okay. Just like Zillow's bullish prediction on the housing market moving into 2026, like, oh, everything's going to get more affordable, so that means it's going to be a good year. Other times you just hear advice like, well, you just need to move to a different area, or you just need to buy something smaller. And while some of that advice can definitely help you or be practically applied in some cases, other times it just can't be. Now, obviously, the price is the main factor on why affordability is completely broken right now. Home prices went up between 30 and 50%, sometimes more, depending on where you live over the past 5 years. And we all know that wages have not. As many times as we've heard the arguments that wages are outpacing inflation, we all know that's BS. So the thing is, even if prices stop rising right now, which in many cases they have, most markets have either fallen flat over the past year or are actually going down in price. It's going to take a long time for wages to actually catch up to be able to afford today's prices. And of course, it's not just the price that makes the home unaffordable. There are a ton of hidden costs that I constantly talk about. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this part, but I just want to remind everybody that things like property taxes and homeowners insurance, flood insurance, special assessments, and HOA dues, if you have an HOA, all of those things contribute heavily to your monthly cost of owning a home, not to mention all the unexpected expenses that can run you a pretty penny these days. But here's where we're going to start getting in the weeds a little bit. The first thing is the down payment, guys. The down payment, which we're going to talk more about later in this video, because they are coming up with all different sorts of ways to give people free money to buy homes, which is part of the problem here. But right now, if you want to put a down payment on a home, median home price is around 400,000. Let's just use that number. A 5% down payment is still 20 grand. 10% is 40 grand and 20% is 80 grand. And that is not easy money to save when people are paying very high rent prices, high grocery prices, high car insurance, high car payments. Some people are just downright irresponsible and blow their money and live off of debt and have to go on that $10,000 vacation every year that they can't afford. And they are the problem when it comes to affording things. But a lot of people who aspire to be able to afford to buy a home, no matter how much they try, they just can't come up with this money. Life is full of surprises and a lot of expenses, and as much as you try to do your best to save, sometimes things come up and you just have to use that reserve for something else that's more pressing at the moment. And that's one of the reasons that there are so many programs these days that try to get people to buy homes with practically nothing down. Guys, there are several programs in existence as I'm making this video where you can put 0% down if your income is low enough. And think about how upside down that is, right? Like, okay, this person's never going to be able to save for a down payment. So the logic here is that if we don't help them out, they're never going to be able to be a homeowner ever in their whole life, right? Fair enough, maybe noble intentions right there. But the reality is, if they can't save for a down payment, how are they going to save when there's a major increase in their tax bill? How are they going to save when the roof needs to be redone? How are they going to save when there's a $30,000 new HVAC problem that comes up? How are they going to save when your property insurance doubles from one year to the next or goes up 20 or 30%? they won't have the money, guys. That's why the foreclosure rate on these type of properties, when people put barely any money down, is extremely high. Because if you give people money to put down and they put nothing down for the home, not only does that tell you that they don't have any money to really be a homeowner, but it also tells you that they don't have any skin in the game and they kind of don't have anything to lose, you know? What do they care if they go into foreclosure or lose the place? You know, they never would have had that place to begin with without that leg up, right? But here's another part of the equation that's keeping homes unaffordable right now. We have a lot of stubborn sellers out there that are still living in 2022, guys, because most areas of the country, 2022 was the peak of the US housing market in terms of prices. And some places actually peaked a little bit later, even in 23 and 24. But these people are looking at what those homes sold for 3 or 4 years ago, and they want the same number. In fact, they want more, even though the housing market has completely collapsed in terms of demand and in terms of inventory levels skyrocketing. And there are now, what, I think it was 57% more sellers than there are buyers out there. Like, who are you selling this place to, especially for more money than 2 or 3 years ago? You know, tell me, who's out there? Who's going to buy it? And since these people have such unrealistic expectations, whether from their own, observations or from real estate agents putting too many crazy stories in their head in order to get the listing, probably a combination of both a lot of times. What happens is these homes sit on the market for a long time and you get some price reductions here and there, but it ends up not really being enough in order to make it affordable. And then they get frustrated and pull it off the market, and they're going to try again in the spring, which we're going to see a flood of inventory hit the market probably in the next couple of months once the spring market kicks in. And a lot of those listings are going to be people who pulled homes off the market, last summer and last fall, frustrated that they couldn't get their price, but they're going to try again, likely many of them at a higher price, thinking that, oh, well, homes always go up in value, so we're just going to ask more now. But a lot of those people are going to get hit with the wake-up call that you're going to have even fewer buyers walking through the door than last year because demand is completely collapsed right now. And the ones who are serious about selling are going to have to get serious about the asking price. And also, something I've talked a little bit about in the past is some of these sellers that are trying to sell and cash out are people who have owned these homes for a very long time. And this is like their retirement, right? This is their nest egg. They're banking on this home being worth all-time high prices and getting the maximum value out of it because this is their lifeline into retirement. And so they're just not willing to budge, and they're hoping that they're still going to be able to get their number. But unfortunately, the longer many of them wait, the lower the number they're going to get probably is going to be, unless they can wait a really long time. We're talking 5 to 10 more years into the future, which many of them cannot. Now, another thing that's making it difficult to buy a home right now, it's kind of making it easier and more difficult at the same time. And here's what I mean. If we take a look at new construction homes, that's basically beating the cost to buy a resale home all across the country. And these home builders, Lennar, for example, have lowered their prices 27% over the past 3.5 years, which is a tremendous reduction and is a crash in new home prices. And on the surface, that sounds great. It makes buying a home more affordable. But the issue with it is people don't have a lot of confidence in these new builds. With the social media and YouTube videos and all of the different platforms out there, it's very easy to see all of the flaws that people run into with these new construction homes. They've had crazy things happen where you have a 2-car garage that is not even big enough to fit 2 cars in it. You have a lot of shoddy workmanship, things that fall apart within months of the home being moved into. You also have situations come up where people need to make a warranty claim, and then they try to have the builder come out there and fix whatever they're supposed to fix that's under warranty, and they never show up, or they come and they just kind of barely do the job in a half-hearted manner. People are running into roofing issues and plumbing problems, structural concerns, and constant repairs, and that doesn't give people a whole lot of confidence to spend a ton of money on a brand new home. And by the way, last time I wore this jacket, people asked me if it was cold, And last time it wasn't actually cold, it was just raining. And today it is kind of raining, so I'm wearing it, but it also is cold. This is probably one of the coldest days in Miami I have felt in a very long time, but I'm not complaining. Now, the next reason it is hard to buy is that getting approved can be difficult. A lot of lenders are tightening up who qualifies for buying a home these days because they're realizing that a lot of people's finances are on shaky ground right now. And so they're really scrutinizing people's debt to income ratios, your credit usage, any student loan payments you might have, car payments, and people that have $700 a month car payments, that just destroys your ability to get a mortgage, guys. You have people that aren't paying student loans, good luck. You are not going to be qualified to get a mortgage. I've told people time and time again there were going to be consequences for bailing on these student loans and not paying them back. And even if you are paying them back, but you have a sizable balance, that can hurt you as well. Too many people are carrying way too much credit card debt. The average balance in this country is close to $8,000 right now, which is just insane when you look at credit card interest rates. But then they go ahead and sit there and approve people that barely can qualify and don't have any money and give them a 0% down loan to get a house, guys. So it's really upside down when it comes to real estate. Another thing I've already touched on, but I'll dive a little bit deeper in for a second. Our HOA fees are completely out of control, and more than half of the homes in the United States now have an HOA fee attached to them, and nearly all the new builds do as well. So escaping HOA fees is becoming more and more difficult. And these can range anywhere between $150 a month to well over $1,000 a month, depending on the type of property, if it's a condo, a townhouse, or a single family home, all the amenities and different things that might be included. And HOA fees essentially always go up. And quick little side tangent, I couldn't believe this, but from 2025 to 2026, this is the first year as a condo owner, me, that I have seen my personal HOA fee actually go down. And it went down by a lot. It went down by like $150 a month, which was kind of crazy. I wasn't expecting that. And apparently we were able to save a good chunk of money on insurance for the building this year due to insurance rates finally coming down somewhat here in Florida. And it's actually having a noticeable impact on our budget and monthly HOA fees. So that was a nice little relief, guys, because I never thought I was ever going to see HOA fees go down, to be quite honest with you. But these HOA fees are yet another monthly expense that are mandatory. You have to pay, which makes being able to afford to buy a home more difficult because the prices are already insane. And then to throw an additional monthly fee that never goes away into the mix is just not doable for a lot of folks. Now I want to talk about how housing is subsidized and why that's a problem, guys. There's a lot of government-backed programs out there that make housing much more unaffordable than it needs to be. Like I was talking about, people with no money can qualify for 0% down loans to get a home. Meanwhile, people who make a good living and have been saving sometimes get denied because their debt to income ratio is too high, or they simply just don't make enough. Because these programs that are designed to help people buy homes, the reality is they realistically cannot afford those homes. When people have no extra money saved and they're putting 0% down to get into the house, it gets people into the house, but it doesn't keep them in the house. And unfortunately, this type of behavior pushes up the price of homes because it allows more people to be home buyers in the housing market who otherwise would never be able to buy a home. So we know that the law of supply and demand tells us that the more people who are interested in buying any given home, well, that's going to push the price up. And so when you have all these extra people in the mix that really shouldn't be in the mix, that makes prices higher than they really should be, therefore making it harder to buy a home. The next thing is institutional investors. Obviously, they have played a large part in housing unaffordability, especially in these Sunbelt markets down here where I live. Anywhere in the southern United States is where a lot of these investors really piled in during the pandemic. And many of them paid over asking price for homes. You have these iBuyer companies that are still out there, like Open Door, who will give people, a slightly lowball offer on their house to get them out of the house quickly and then turn around and try to flip it for a profit. That makes the price go up. And everyday buyers are competing with these big institutional firms. And if you're a seller looking at two offers and one might be $10,000 lower or $15,000 lower, but I can close next week, versus somebody who has to get a mortgage and the deal might fall apart, as the seller, you're probably going to choose the guaranteed option that's all cash, that you're going to be able to just take your money and go. But the more homes that are bought as investments to either be turned into these rentals or to be flipped for a profit makes housing more expensive and more inaccessible, because you just once again have more people competing for the same homes, and average people really can't compete with institutional investors. And of course, the Trump administration just pushed forward the executive order to ban institutional investors. However, they haven't really defined what an institutional investor is yet. And I don't think it's really going to move the needle, guys, because it's really not going to cover the entire scope of what I think an institutional investor should be. Like, really? They want to make it big numbers, like you got to own, over 100 homes or something like that. But in reality, it should be a much lower threshold, guys. Like, if you own more than 10 investment properties, you should be considered an institutional investor. Even if you're technically mom and pop and you've just been doing it for a long time, that in my book is still an institutional investor. It's somebody in the marketplace that has the ability to buy up several homes if they wanted to. And I'm not for this ban in general, just because I think it's unconstitutional. But if you're going to implement it, I think the threshold should be a lot lower than what might be considered right now. Also, another huge problem contributing to making it hard to buy a home is the move towards luxury. In case you haven't noticed, everything these days that they build is geared towards luxury, guys. A lot of the brand new homes are all luxury builds, brand new luxury townhouses, luxury condos. This is very obvious here in South Florida. Maybe other parts of America's heartland isn't experiencing this as much, but even a lot of the rental complexes they're building right now are geared towards luxury tenants. And it's like, yeah, that's great. Problem is, a lot of people can't afford that stuff. But builders build this and cater to these type of buyers because the profit margins are a lot higher. And so that's how business goes, right? Everybody's incentivized to do what's going to make them the most money. And unfortunately, there's just not a lot of money in building affordable housing. Remote work has also played a big part in making it so difficult to be able to buy a home, mainly because now that so many people can work from home or work from anywhere, it makes it so that people who make significantly more money can come into a local housing market that is considered cheap for them, but maybe on the high side for locals, and easily buy a home to live in, and maybe even a couple investment properties as well. So that kind of skews the playing field in markets that were traditionally affordable. That's one of the reasons I think you're seeing the prices go so high in the Midwest, because the Midwest has been traditionally affordable. And like where I grew up, guys, near Rockford, Illinois, the economy there is in the toilet, okay? So many things are closed over there. All the things that used to be open when I was a kid, everything is shut down. The area just seems to be more and more economically depressed every time I go back for a visit, yet it continues to be one of America's top housing markets in terms of price growth. And I think that's because a lot of people that no longer need to be in Chicago, for example, can come out there and easily buy up these homes and live out that way and still be 90 minutes away from the city if they want or need to go back, but don't have to go into the office, So that definitely has an impact on affordability. So next time you hear somebody ask, why is it so hard to buy a house? The answer is a lot more complicated than just prices are high. Yes, prices are high, and I agree that's the number one reason why it's unaffordable and why it's so hard. But the reason why the prices are so high is a combination of everything we just talked about. I don't think a lot of these things can easily be fixed, and maybe a lot of these things we talked about will never be fixed. But one thing is for sure, is that the longer buyers sit out this market and they refuse to pay today's prices, then the more sellers will be forced to come to reality with the price of their home when they actually want to sell. So just keep that in mind if you're a buyer, guys. Like, the more people who boycott and don't buy, the better it's going to be for everyone who does want to buy in the long run. And today I'm walking down Post Avenue and Prairie Avenue here in Miami Beach. Now, I did talk about housing being subsidized as one of the main issues with affordability these days, but listen to this, guys. Right now, housing is so unaffordable, and there are so many programs out there to help people. Even six-figure earners are getting free money to buy homes now. Now, let's do the quick math. In order to buy the $400,000 median home, you need to earn around $121,000 a year to actually qualify for that purchase, which is well above the household income of about $85,000 in America. And that's why right now, down payment assistance programs have been surging. There are now around 2,600 programs nationwide, which is 6% more than the year before. And most of these programs are government funded. And these programs are not just for low-income buyers anymore. Traditionally, the assistance was limited to households earning 80% or less of the area's median income. But now, 62% of the down payment programs that are out there support buyers earning over $100,000 a year. And 10% of these programs have no income limits at all anymore. That's a 15% increase in no income limit programs in just 1 year. That's a major shift and is going to have an impact on home prices and affordability, guys. Now, the average assistance amount is about $18,000, and a lot of these programs help you out with closing costs and mortgage insurance reductions. But there is a catch, because a lot of these down payment assistance programs are not free money. Many of them are structured as second mortgages, otherwise known as piggyback loans. So buyers technically put $0 down, but you take on 2 loans instead of 1. And these loans are usually required to be repaid when the home is sold, if the buyer moves, or if the property is no longer a primary residence. So if you want to leave and turn it into a rental, you're going to have to pay this money back. And over 1,000 of these programs actually offer forgivable loans, where buyers don't have to repay them if they stay in the home for a certain number of years. And if those conditions aren't met, then you could be hit with that repayment. And it turns out California has the most down payment assistance programs, more than any other state. That's followed by Florida and Texas. And so many of these programs are cropping up because without them, you think buyer demand is low now? Imagine how much lower it would be if none of these things existed. So these are all artificial fake programs in order to prop up home prices across America. Check this out. In the Bay Area, in San Bruno, California, you can get up to $140,000 in assistance, which is up to 20% down of the purchase price. Okay? Right there, with no income limits. But of course, the median home price there is about $1.25 million, and the loan must be repaid if the homeowner leaves their city job or sells the homes. This is geared towards city employees over there. And I understand where they're coming from, guys. They're like, okay, it's not right when people who actually work for the city of San Bruno can't afford to live here and have to commute from an hour away somewhere else in the Bay Area and deal with traffic every day to get here. It is crazy. So it comes from a good place, but it skews the market and it makes things even worse is the problem. But mortgage brokers across the country are saying that demand for these home buyer assistance programs is absolutely skyrocketing right now, and more loan officers are actively searching for programs just to make the deal work. A lot of people can't even qualify anymore unless you do get some help. And what I'm here to tell you is that these programs are not evidence of a healthy housing market, guys. These are symptoms of extreme unaffordability right now. And if the system now requires financial assistance just to be able to participate, even for six-figure earners, that's a huge red flag. I mean, if it keeps going like this, what is it going to be? In 10 years from now, even millionaires are going to qualify for down payment assistance programs? And who do you think pays for all this? Where do you think all this money comes from, guys? It's not free. It comes from us, the taxpayers. Everybody ends up paying for this. So people who don't own homes, for example, renters, still pay taxes, still pay income taxes in your state or to the federal government, or both if you're in a state that charges income taxes. And that hard-earned money that you'll never see again goes towards somebody who's making $150,000 a year to be able to buy a home. Is that right? I don't think so. It's just like the student loan argument, guys. Trying to use taxpayer money to pay off or forgive student loans. How is that fair for people who didn't go to college? Why does somebody who didn't go to college and makes, less money than somebody who went to college, why should they be forced to subsidize somebody who went to college and got in over their head and can't pay the bills? You see, everything is being structured in a way that we're just going to rob everyone. It's not even just, take from the rich and give to the poor anymore. It's take from anybody and give it to whoever we see fit. That's what these programs are turning into. And because all these things exist, well, guess what? Home prices are near all-time record highs still. College tuition is near all-time record highs still. All these things that are subsidized and all these programs that they try to create to make affordability better ends up making it 10 times worse. And the proof is in the pudding. We can see that right now with our own eyes. And if you disagree with that, I would love to hear the counter argument, guys. And I'm not talking about, oh, well, if it wasn't for these programs, Michael, I would have never been able to buy a home, or I never would have been able to go to college. Yeah, obviously, because those programs exist. If they didn't exist and we didn't have all these other problems like I just talked about, you wouldn't need that assistance. Now, one glimmer of hope I want to end this video with is actually aimed at renters, guys, because rent prices now have dropped to the lowest level that we've seen in actually 4 years, which is great news if you're a renter. The national median rent as of January now is $1,353 a month, which is 1.4% lower than it was a year ago. And it's actually 6.2% lower than it was in the summer of 2022. So we are making some headway in terms of rent prices coming down. And when you factor in inflation's been a big problem since the summer of 2022. Actually, we've seen double-digit declines in rent prices when you look at it that way. This is very good news if you're a renter, and should be a good reason to maybe consider being a renter in 2026 and forget about this home buying nonsense and needing to, get down payment assistance programs. That's an extra mortgage that you're going to have to pay back one day. And part of the thing that's fueling these rent prices coming down so much is the national vacancy rate was 7.3% as of January, which is a record high according to Apartment List. Units are also taking on average 41 days in order to get leased, which is another record high for that index. And there are so many brand new buildings that are being built still only for renters, only apartment complexes, and renters have a tremendous amount of choice right now and a lot of leverage. So many different places are offering 1, 2, even 3 months free rent. There are a ton of concessions out there that you can get being a renter. And if you can play the rental game, kind of like playing the credit card game, you can save a lot of money right now by moving every year, if that's something you're into. If you really want to maximize your savings, you can save a tremendous amount of money moving every year and taking advantage of, 2 months free specials in different areas. So don't scoff at renting, guys. Renting right now is actually a very good deal, especially when you compare it to being a homeowner. The monthly cost is just a lot lower. There's no surprise expenses, and you can continue to save towards being a homeowner. And as you see the prices continue to come down and more sellers give up on waiting, that's going to be even more opportunity for people who are just patient. I will also tell you that if you find a good deal today, don't hesitate, go for it. If you can afford it and you see your market softening substantially and you find an opportunity, a place you've been looking for a while, and it's in your price range, don't wait for the price to come down. Just grab it while you can. Because it's hard enough to find a house that you really want to be in. And if the price has already dropped substantially, it might drop further, but that's not a guarantee, and you don't want to gamble with something that could be that important to you. I'm only telling you this if you can really afford it, not if you have to stretch, not if you need down payment assistance or any of that stuff. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.